Thank you very much, Tom, and thank you very much for letting me to come and speak here today. It's a real privilege to be here, and I would like to thank all the organizers for this very good conference altogether. I have to have a disclaimer in the beginning. Whatever I'm going to say reflects my personal views. They may or may not reflect the Finnish official positions. And I sincerely hope that in the evening today I will still agree myself what I'm going to say today. As we have heard on several occasions already today, illicit financial flows are a problem. They're a problem for each and every nation in the world. They hamper domestic resource mobilization and they lead to huge tax revenue losses everywhere. Illicit financial flows make societies weaker and more vulnerable. And as my esteemed colleague from South Africa said, they also can lead to a lot of inequality in different countries. Tackling illicit financial flows require, of course, domestic, international, and global actions. No country can do this alone. There needs to be cooperation, but international or global agreements don't mean anything unless they are implemented on a national level. My own country, Finland, sees the illicit financial flows as a major problem and is tackling it on national, regional, and global fora. As I said, we have to start at home. Having own house in a relative order is a prerequisite for international and global actions. You know that there are several different kind of international comparisons published almost monthly, and my own country, Finland, does usually quite well on those. What I like particularly is the index on the failed states. The last index contains 177 countries, and it shows, or at least that index, that Finland is the least failed state in the world. What is very good in this, I think, is that it's least failed state. It means that there are certain failures also in Finland, and we can certainly do better, and that certainly applies to each and every country in the world. When speaking about illicit flows on the domestic scene, our main tool, of course, is transparency, and it's, of course, transparency also on the international level. Let me give a couple of examples of our own transparency on our national level. First of all, on taxation. Each and every person's tax records are public information in Finland. If somebody would be interested how much I declared in taxable income last year and how much I paid taxes on that, that person just needs to call the local tax office and he or she will get the information. Of course, that information would say only that my income was very lousy and I paid a lot of taxes. But the same transparency applies to everybody, even for the President and the Prime Minister of Finland. And of course, you can understand that there's a lot of interest, the public interest in these tax records. And practically each and every newspaper in Finland publishes, actually now late October usually, on information on certain, important people, politicians, business leaders, celebrities, sports stars, and so on. How much did they earn during the previous year, and how much did they pay taxes on that? So there's a lot of interest on those matters, and certainly this increased transparency also helps to solve certain difficulties or discrepancies if those can be seen. We also apply on tax issues a reversed burden of proof method approach on suspicious wealth. This means that if somebody seems to have wealth beyond his or her declared income, he or she needs to be able to explain where the money has come from. This doesn't happen too often, but it's there anyway. And the transparency applies also to the ownership of publicly traded companies in Finland. The shareholder registers are public information even on a very low level of ownership. This, of course, also helps to track and solve some contradicting interest issues. I should also mention that it's illegal for a Finn or a Finnish company to engage in bribery anywhere in the world, even if the action would not be illegal or prosecuted in a third country. When Lena showed the examples of the OECD records, it showed that there hasn't been any cases in Finland like this until the end of 2011. But actually there has been a case which was actually solved in the first level of courts. A Finnish company, or there was a suspicion that the Finnish company was involved in bribing in a third country, and this has been a long-going process which led to a political turmoil in the third country. The Prime Minister had to resign because of this investigation and so on. But there was no criminal investigation in the third country, but the criminal investigation took place in Finland. But actually in the end the court acquitted the company and the persons accused of this crime. Finland takes the governance of international financial system seriously. As an OECD and EU member state, we are heavily involved in the work on automatic exchange of information, anti-money laundering, and the financial accounting rules. We are also, of course, very much promoting the automatic exchange of information approach in Europe and globally. On the regional, and I would say also on the global level, our main instrument to combat illicit financial flows is the European Union. There has been more than enough news and analysis of the financial challenges and debt crisis in Europe. One of the reasons leading to these was that countries that did not adhere to common rules and regulations on fiscal prudence. Of course, there has been country-specificities also. In my opinion, fiscal prudence and adherence to rules help also to combat illicit flows. It is clear that we need to have more transparency in Europe. This means increased automatic exchange of information between European countries. We think also that in order to have a more perfect common market in Europe, there should not be market distortive tax hideouts or excessive tax incentives in Europe. We have a long way to go on this path, but it seems that there seems to be more convergence on these matters than before. European Union is also our main vehicle when we are trying to put some pressure on tax havens around the globe. The ways to go in this respect can be soft or robust or even coercive. Negotiations, agreements on information sharing is of course more preferable way than more coercive ways of, for example, denying of market access to Europe for certain third country entities because of withholding information. At the same time, one has to be very clear on this matter that both these measures are needed and they have to be in the toolbox, and both of them can certainly yield very good results, as you know from this country too. We of course are very active participant in different kinds of networks when fighting against the illicit financial flows, and of course we are active partners in this in the OECD and International Monetary Fund, where we once again try to apply the approach on transparency. We have probably given a little bit less attention to the UN Committee of Tax Experts, even though it does seem that they do quite good work, especially in the field of model tax agreements, even though I understood from the morning discussions that not everybody agrees to this approach. And even though I'm my country's ambassador and I'm permanent representative at the United Nations, I have to say that on some occasions, calls to employ more UN in the work to curb illicit financial flows are calls to do nothing. As the UN applies consensus approach on issues, it is clear that countries which have special interest in this respect could and almost certainly would stall the process. Let me say a couple of words about Finland's international development policy. Our development policy promotes economic growth that reduces inequality, pursues justice, and creates equal opportunities for all to participate in the society. Curbing illicit financial flows is an essential element in this. In our view, we should once again work on two levels, tackling the illicit financial flows directly, but also help societies building conditions where there would be less space for illicit financial flows. We believe that development cooperation must support developing countries in improving their tax systems and public services, building capacities for a well-functioning state. By tackling the underlying dynamics that enable illicit financial flows, we will have long-term results, but the gains don't come quickly. By strengthening the foundation and prerequisites for domestic revenue collection, we also lay ground for reducing aid dependency, and we believe that this is a productive investment to use ODA for. In international development policy, domestic resource mobilization is finally getting the high priority it deserves. This must also entail curbing illicit financial flows. The necessary political will appears to be increasing, and it is recognized as a central element of accountability. In the preparations for the post-2015 development agenda, financing and policy coherence issues with regard to domestic resource mobilizations and tax matters have a prominent role. As we have heard, the magnitude of illicit financial flows is enormous. If we can keep the part which in the country where it belongs, we are in much better position to achieve sustainable development. We will also do our part in relation to post-2015 and development agenda and illicit financial flows. Finland is co-chairing the Committee of Experts on Sustainable Development Financing, and in this role, we have a responsibility to make sure that the committee's report also includes issues related to illicit financial flows. The committee has started its work and divided its work in three clusters. First, assessing financial needs and mapping of current flows. 2, mobilization of resources and effective use. And 3, institutional arrangements, policy coherence, and governance issues. This is a work ongoing and should be concluded by the end of next year. When we speak about international or global cooperation, we always have to keep in mind that we are seeking multilateral solutions and agreements which are in the national interests of member or participating states. That's the beauty of multilateral cooperation, of course, and that's the difficulty also there. How to agree jointly on issues where everybody can feel that this is in the national interest. And certainly a very difficult thing to do. Raymond put in the morning the question whether we are ready to take a more comprehensive approach on the transparency agenda, or whether we should stick to that we are tackling certain issues in certain forums and in certain discussions. To have a more comprehensive approach, of course, requires, as Raymond said in the morning, whole of the government approach from the national governments. I think that we are moving into this direction, but we are not yet there. And I guess that we need to continue to work in different fora with somewhat different agendas, though going at the same time to the same direction. Thank you very much.